You need a theme song, an introductory song.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Good evening. And here is the news.
I thought boom.
Boom! Oh, yeah, okay. Boom! Welcome to the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. I'm Thundercloud. My mum calls me James. I'm washing away the garbage, leaving rainbows after rain. Let's have some fun and linguistic games. I needed a prompt to get into character. Well, thank you very much. Boom! Yeah. The slam storm is coming to Guyra. That's the headline in the Guyra Gazette today. But let's begin with acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we broadcast, the Banjo and the Kamilaroi people, and the traditional custodians right across this continent called Australia, to acknowledge sovereignty never being ceded and acknowledge the continuing connection to the land of the elders past and present. Righto, let's move on. So, got lots of news happening this week. I'll be reading out from this wonderful new collection of poems, complete poems of Banjo Paterson, a couple of them donated by Michelle and Simon Murray. Simon Murray was the ex-mayor of Armado, and Michelle, they went down to Orange recently in Molong, where Banjo Paterson's home, and while they were down there, they bought this book for me to add to the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame library and archive of Australian poetry, and that's fantastic. So that's just one more. So thank you very much, Michelle and Simon Murray, for your generous support. And on that note, we're always looking for donations of more books to add to the poetry archive and library. And just yesterday, and you can check out this on Chill and Tuesday for the 11th of July 2023, is this book I'll show you. Diana Pearce, Going to Orange, and it's about someone told her about something about going to Orange, so it's really nothing about that at all, but that's the title of it. It's available, you can get it online through Amazon, but it's published by Ginninderra Press, and I do need to make an apology and a redaction for last night because I was saying it was published by Giramondo Press, but I have put that in the description of Chill and Tuesday anyway. So Diana Pearce is an primary school principal, and she used to read out poetry at the parade instead of chastising the children. Anyway, 30 years later, one of the children, who was 30 at the time, came up to her and was an adult now and said, "Oh, hey miss, do you still read poetry out, blah, 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 blah?" And anyway, so she actually wrote this book. It was published this year. Check it out, Going to Orange by Diana Pearce. Along with that, there was another book that she sent to the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. Excuse me for turning my back on the camera and the people here. Messages from the Embers, from Devastation to Hope, Australian Bushfire Poetry Anthology. It's got 117 different poets, all writing about bushfires and associated things. Edited by Julia Kaylock and Denise O'Hagan. I can't read it out because I don't have a written permission from the publishers to read anything from that one yet, though. But Banjo Paterson, well, he died very, very, very long ago, so all of his poetry is out of copyright. So what I'll be reading to you tonight, because it's a bit of bush poetry, and the reason I'm focusing on bush poetry is because one of the amazing things that we've got coming up here is the New South Wales Bush Poetry Championship in November. But first things first, the slam storm is coming. So I want to read to you this article that was in the Guyra Gazette today. The Australian Poetry Slam is a live literary performance program where the audience decides the champion. This year, Guyra will host one of the 60 heats which are being held across the nation, right here in the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame on the 15th and 16th of August. It'll be a great opportunity for slammers to perform, for a chance to win, 2 places at the New South Wales final titles and maybe even the national final. That'd be fantastic if a regional poet could get there. Poets, this is your call to write revolutions. You got 2 minutes on the microphone to build your momentum to a crescendo and be heard. Poets will be chosen by the Gyra audience to head to the New South Wales spot in the final. So we actually randomly choose audience members and they actually do the voting. Right, where they if you want to turn your moments of into momentum, bring your notebook and voice to the Gyra Slam Workshop, which has been held on Tuesday, August the 15th, here, followed by the Heat, which will be held on Wednesday, August the 16th. It'll be one of 1,000 riders, come on, who will grab their moment in the spotlight to leading to the national final and a prize worth 20 grand. Whoa, including publishing and gigs from Byron to Bali and beyond. Last year, Joanna Young won and was crowned the APS national champion, and she said winning the prize is absolutely incredible and this experience is beyond surreal. You can find out more by visiting the website australianpoetryslam.com, australianpoetryhalloffame.com.au, and also from our Facebook and YouTube as well. Well, Facebook, yeah. Right, okay, so the slam, that's coming up. Other news, one more piece of news. We've got July 22nd, next Saturday week at 2:30 here. Armidale Chamber Choir Fiore Musicale is coming to sing Love and Nature, a selection of 20th century modern composers from Elgar Williams and a few others like, who we got, Vaughan Williams, Holst, Elgar and Britton. So that's Saturday the 22nd of July. Tickets are $20 and $25 and available online from Try Booking or at the door on the day, but preferred if you pre-book so we know adequate numbers. Right, Banjo Paterson, let's get the Poe on the road. The Mountain Squatter. Here in my mountain home, on rugged hills and steep, I sit and watch you come, oh Riverina sheep. You come from fertile plains where saltbush sometimes grows and flats that when it rains will blossom like the rose. But when the summer sun gleams down like burnished brass, you have to leave your run and hustle off the grass. 'Tis then that forced to roam you come to where I keep, here in my mountain home, a boarding house for sheep. Around me where I sit, the wary wombat goes, a beast of little wit, but he knows what he knows. The very same remark applies to me also. I don't give out a spark, but I know what I know. My brain perhaps would show no convolutions deep, but anyhow I know the way to handle sheep. These Riverina cracks they do not care to ride, the half-inch hanging tracks along the mountainside. Their horses shake with fear when loosened boulders go, with leaps like startled deer down the gulfs to the gulfs below. Their very dogs will shirk and drop their tails in fright when asked to go and work a mob that's out of sight. My little collie pup works silently and wide. You'll see her climbing up along the mountainside, as silent as a fox. You'll see her come and go, a shadow through the rocks where ash and messmate grow. Then, lost to sight and sound, beyond some rugged steep, she works her way around and gathers up the sheep. And working wide and shy, she holds them rounded up. The cash ain't coin to buy that little collie pup. And so I draw a screw for self and dog to keep. Oh, to boundary ride for you, oh, Riverina sheep. And when the autumn rain has made the herbage grow, you travel off again and glad, no doubt, to go. But some are left behind around the mountain spread. For those we cannot find, we put them down as dead. But when we say adieu and close the boarding job, I always find a few fresh earmarks in my mob. And so, what with those I sell and what with those I keep, you pay me pretty well, O Riverina sheep. It's up to me to shout before we say goodbye. Here's to a howling drought, all west of Gundagai. Riverina sheep, the mountain squatter. Yeah. So a bit of bush poetry there. Now, I'm really excited about bush poetry, not because I claim to be a great bush poet or anything like that, but in November, I'm excited, we've got here the New South Wales, the Australian Bush Poetry Association is auspicing it, helping out, New South Wales Bush Poetry Championship. And it hasn't been on for a really long time, like years and years. Nobody knows, nobody can remember when the last one was. It's like so long ago, probably before Captain Cook even came to the place. I don't know. Right, so there's never been I don't know. Anyway, next things next, right. In that's happening from the 18th and 19th of November in conjunction with the Poets on the Mountain Festival at Guyra, starting on the 12th of November with the Poets Walkabout held by the New England Writers Centre. Then during the week there'll be some workshops and talks and gatherings and stuff like that. And then on the, as well as that, so there's a performance category, 3 actually. There's the original serious, original humorous, and then the traditional one that you have to recite someone else's poem. And that's the performance category. There's also written categories. And the really exciting thing is the Australian Bush Poetry Festival. Now, I'm not sure, film festival, yeah. And you can put your submissions in on filmfreeway.org. So check that out. The Australian Bush Poetry Film Festival. Now, as far as I'm aware, there hasn't been a poetry film festival in Australia. And if there hasn't been an Australian Bush Poetry Festival. So filmmakers, poets, bush poets, performers, writers, whatever, you've got 10 minutes to, including the credits and all of that kind of stuff, to put onto film and submit via Film Freeway your bestest ideas of bush poetry on film. It could be animated, it could be an original poet just doing his do, walking through the bush, doing his po and his po, saying his say, or it could be telling the whole story in video format. It could be whatever you can think of as a filmmaker, but it must follow the form of bush poetry according to the Australian Bush Poetry Association, which means Australian themes, Australian bush themes, metered and rhymed as per the different forms of metre and rhyme. Now, if you go to the Australian ABPA.org, Australian Bush Poets Association.org, you will get cheaper entry fees into the competition if you're a member of the Bush Poetry Association, but they've also got on the website there a whole lot of, like, they've got the marking sheets as to how they assess bush poetry and all that kind of stuff. So that's very exciting. The Australian Bush Poetry Film Festival, you'll see the link in the description. I'll put that up there later. If it's not there immediately, come back in a day or so. There's the then in Trout Festival, we got the Poets Breakfast in 30th of October and the Poets on the Mountain Festival. Right, I've got one more Banjo Paterson bush poem to do, and then I will invite Ashley up after that. This is called The Ballad of Ashantie Pagoda, or How the Brigadier Got the Order of the Nile and the Servian White Eagle. I write that he who reads may run of Colonel Ashantie Pagoda, who thought no day was well begun unless begun with whiskey soda. And when he entertained a friend all thoughts of slumber proudly scorning, he thought no day should have an end till, pardon me, till 4:30 next morning. Pardon me, I need a drink here. Have a cup of tea. I might start that again. I write that he who reads may run of Colonel Ashantie Pagoda, who thought no day was well begun unless begun with whiskey soda. And when he entertained a friend all thoughts of slumber proudly scorning, he thought no day should have an end till 4:30 next morning. Though poor his gain in worldly gear, he lived his life upon the level. His soldiers said he stood in fear of neither hog nor dog nor devil. And when he moved against the Turk, they paused in intervals of drinking to whisper, "There'll be dirty work at the crossroads tonight, I'm thinking." The brigadier whom he obeyed was what is called a regimental. His gallantry had been displayed in actions at the Continental. He'd gained distinctions orthodox, the DSO and Crocs to houses, by ordering all lieutenants' socks should match the colour of their trousers. At camp inspections he was great for Dixie lids, he knew the right wash. At lectures he would rise and state, the road to fame is paved with whitewash. But when he moved against the Turk to mop 'em up and put 'em through it, he didn't know the fighting work, so old Pagoda had to do it. Now, let us hear a story true about a fight as soldiers view it. They know but little what they do and know still less of why they do it. But even toads have jewels bright within their heads, so some old stagger may get an inkling of a fight. Let's hear the squadron sergeant major. The whole caboose moved out at dawn, column of route and our squadron leading, and never yet, since I was born, have I seen anything more bleeding. 'Twas just what always is the case, the rest was told to halt and set there while we sent some to the wrong place, and then mistook the road to get there. We marches 20 miles, I guess, with hills and rocks around us scowling. Talk of howling wilderness, so help me, you could hear it howling. We had no guides, and we were sore to find some Turks that we could score on. We caught some Bedouin who swore they didn't know there was a war on. We perished on until I think we must have crossed the Turkish borders, and not a bloomin' drop to drink and not a bloomin' word of orders. The colonel says to me, "Here you're always there when trouble's brewin', ride up that hill and have a view and see if you can see what's doin'." So up I goes, and there I sees the finest sight you could show me, for there was Turks as thick as bees all squatted in the plain below me. So when we're getting off to fire, a chap comes riding hell for leather, says he your orders are retire so that the Turks is too strong together. We've fought all day, we're fighting still, you must retire, you can't pursue 'em. Right, said old Ashantie, I will. I'm bloomin' well, retire right through 'em. See here, says he, you sons of guns. This force, says he, we've ridden round 'em. We've looked all day for Turks and Huns, and now, thank God, at last we've found 'em. Our road to camp headquarters goes direct across that Turk position. So I'm entitled, I suppose, to go straight home with that permission. Fix, bayonets, walk, march out, open out. Now boys go at 'em, hell for leather, we fix spikes and gives a shout and charges down the hill together. Good Lord, you should have heard the din, the rattling tins, the horses falling. And just as we was closing in, the Jackos and the Germans squalling. We gives 'em nothing. Strike me blue. They thought we was a whole division. Before they'd formed, we'd ridden through the camp and captured the position. They turned it in, 3,000 head of Turkish prisoners there we counted, and old Pagoda grinned and said, well, cavalry's some use when mounted. They'd been there fighting all day long, the brigadier had already wired. To say the Turks was far too strong and all our troops had been retired, he had to cancel all he'd sent, the wires grew hot with telegraphing, and all those who tumbled what it meant were fit to split their sides with laughing. Here ends the sergeant's story true of how we captured Turks in plenty. The rest was done by GHQ, see GRO 1/19/20. The Brigadier Commanding Force is hereby warmly complimented, a whole brigade of Turkish horse. He first attacked, then circumvented. The Nile boil and Servian stain are his to wear without our borders. But Ashantie will please explain for misinterpreting his orders. Yeah. So yeah, well, one of the things about Banjo Paterson, he was a war correspondent, so he did travel quite widely to a number of, conflict situations to write about them.
So was Kenneth Slessor. Herr Schlosser.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, we'll welcome Ashley Albanese up here. Yes, we will. Thank you, Ashley. Yay. Give him a big clap. That's not
Well.
Yeah.
Well. I'm a bit nonplussed by the state of things. I will start with a quote of a great philosopher. Power does not make right, but power can shape the reality of things. My quote for our moment in history. Well, my hypothesis is that these will do as well as rulers. So, hypothesis, implication, and test. I was careful to see I chose three things that are of the same measure. What can we say about hypothesis, implications, and test, or the parameters of? Well, we could talk forever about them, which says something. I had an interesting experience this week. I've wanted to put on here at the Poets Hall of Fame, Like Art in Theatre by Francis Webb. And perhaps we will.
Yeah,
but I hadn't a copy, so I got this in the main street of Uralla. And it's a book put out by Douglas Stewart. It's quite interesting how culture weaves and connects. And it's a set of poems that are longer narrative poems. And Douglas Stewart does a spiel, like my friend Michael Sharkey would do, saying that the great poets' poems are the longer poems where the architectonics can speak for itself, and does. So Douglas Stewart says that more or less, and he gives a set of poems, real favourites of mine, and a couple I don't know, and it ends with Like Art in Theatre. So I've got a copy at long last, because one of my sisters gave away a few thousand of my books not long ago, and that was amongst them. And 2 days later I got this book of a favourite poet, again wandering up Uralla streets, and there's an essay in this by Fitzgerald, who died near here at Glen Innes not long ago, and the book is put together, a collection of his work with some philosophical preambles and interlacings by Julian Croft, who lectured and worked with Michael Sharkey at the university here for many years, and is a publisher and published. And in this book he's got a long essay by R.D. Fitzgerald about this book with the Voyager poems. The point being that I didn't agree with anything Robert Fitzgerald said about Like Art in Theatre, which was just interesting. I didn't agree at all with what he said, and I would interpret that poem as a piece of theatre, and Fitzgerald says it's not, and Webb shows he was embarrassed and changed the mood of his strand of spaghetti as he stretched it and stretched it. So that was interesting. I disagreed with the great critic. So, 2 poems, one by, which I will read in Italian and English, by Giacomo Leopardi. And strange, I found it today, and I thought it chimes in with the poem I wrote yesterday, sitting in the Fat Goose. It's about the the headland at Evans Head. It's called Remember We Must Die. Talking about reality. Socrates said the main point of philosophy is that we must recall and remember that we must die. And we must, in some sense, be aware that we are already, what can one say? Already. What's Hamlet say? Special providence in the fall of a sparrow. If it be now, be not to come. If it be not to come, then it be now. Why? The readiness is all. So here's my little poem about the headland. The tides are far below, can't pick you up, sailboat anchor, rusting in ever shaft-spearing symmetry, still seeking your holding ooze. On the fisherman's headland, in the wash of things, you once held the keels to the bank below, without which there is no hand to harvest the farmer's plenty, carrying it away to the teeming belly. The Arvo, they trucked you to the lookout. There were speeches, a polite clapping of hands, looking down at the bar. The Shire clerk had signed cheques in his back pocket, paid for the sausage sizzle, thinking of great-granddad's tales of pulling the trigger, wielding the axe. His dad, the mariner, the Sunday Arvo cruiser, raised the sail, looked back to the mouth. The Evans Head monument set aloft, where the great divide slings north and south. That anchor craned upwards, a barb of monstrance. A honking taxi provides the mystic bell and plonks us down at the RSL, commemorating massacres after the event. A toast indeed, that anchor monumentalizes memento mori. Remember, we must die. And near that monument was an Aboriginal massacre, which I tried to evoke in some way, implicitly in that poem. But nearby there was a massacre. Many people of local tribe were pushed over the cliffs there, where that anchor monument is. And I was privileged to be amongst the people trying to stop the suburb that's built right up to that anchor, where now great driveways and garages fill with what could very quickly be rusting cars when the salt and the surge comes sweeping up onto that headland. So there you are, the Evans Head monument set aloft, where the Great Divide slings north and south. Craned upwards, a barb of monstrance. That's the little circular symbol sun thing that the priest raises as they ring the bells. A honking taxi provides the mystic bell and plonks us down to the RSL, commemorating massacres after the event. A toast indeed that anchor monumentalizes memento mori. Remember, we must die. And I will finish with, it's one of my favourite places in spite of the tragedy of the massacre, the tribe going over the cliff, the drama of the place looking up to Ballina along the eastern seaboard is truly epic. I don't often use that word, truly epic, and the great dividing range north and south in the distance, and the strange, quite surrealistic suburb that comes right up to the sweep of the headland, and you hardly ever see anybody ever drive in or out or stand upon a deck or gaze from that suburb into the blue distance. It's very, very haunting, and the anchor itself represents that 30 or 40 years of Whitefella Northern Rivers development that was always along the riverbanks, as was much of my life as a boy there. So it's close to my river, as it were. Now, Leopardi, he was born in 1898. So he was 20 years old when the world was really a change. The Mediterranean and Latin culture and world, which France had tried to fix in another second or third Roman Empire, was to be eclipsed by the Atlantic and the Anglo realm that is now being eclipsed by Asia and the Pacific. And it must have been something in his awareness, as he was probably the greatest linguist Europe has produced in the last 2 centuries. And he was to die in 37 when all of this was fully over the bar, as it were. And I write all this on my hand before I get up to palaver, so I remember the dates accurately. Getting into 170s, one gets fuzzy. Now, we have the first poem that really impacted upon me in my life, because I was reading Russell's History of Western Philosophy, and he quotes it in full. Infinito, the infinite. I'll read it in Italian first and then in English. It's a short poem, and it's considered by Italians to be divine. L'infinito. Sempre caro mi fu quest'ermocole e questa siepe che da tanta parte dell'ultimo orizzonte il guardo esclude. Mar sedendo e mirando interminati spazi di là da quella e sovrumani silenzi e profondissima quiete, io nel pensiero mi fingo ove per poco il cor non si spaura, e come il vento odo stomir per queste piante. Io quello infinito silenzio a questa voce, vo comparando, e mi sovviene eterno e la morte stagione, e la presente è viva, e il suon di lei, cosa tra questa immensità se nega il pensiero mio, il naufragarmi dolce in questo mare. The infinite.
Yeah.
It was always dear to me, this solitary hill and this hedge which shuts off the gaze from so large a part of the uttermost horizon. But sitting and looking out, in thought I fashion for myself endless spaces beyond more than human silences, and deepest quiet where the heart is all but terrified. And as I hear the wind rustling among those plants, I go on and compare this voice to that infinite silence, and I recall the eternal and the dead seasons, and the present living one and her sound. So in this immensity, my thoughts drown, and shipwreck is sweet to me in this sea. So he says, così tra questa immensità se negar, il pensiero mio è il naufragar, ma è dolce in questo mare. The divine Leopardi. Who was a cripple, a hunchback, always in love with somebody, and the love loved him, but the somebody I don't think ever did because he was a hunchback.
Okay. Thank you very much. Ashley.
Thanks, Leopardi.
All right. Well, we'll get Skye up here very soon, and then even sooner, I'm hoping that Saul Cafarella walks in as well. Yeah. Now, going through this complete poems of Banjo Paterson, it's published by Angus and Robertson Classics, Australian Classics, in this one. Doesn't say. Oh yes it does. Oh yes it does. 2001. This edition 2014. But I've come to one right near the end on page 442 called a triolet. Now, what is a triolet? It's a form of poetry which I've just discovered for myself, and you're probably about to discover it too. It's 8 lines. It has an A, capital B, first and second line. And then the third line, A, rhymes with the first line. And then you have the fourth line, repeats the first line. Then you have another line which rhymes with the first line. Then you have a B rhymes with the second line. And then you repeat the first line and the second line. So, a triolet by Banjo Paterson. Of all the sticky forms of verse, commend me to the triolet. It makes bad writers somewhat worse. Of all the sticky forms of verse that fall beneath a reader's curse, it is the feeblest jingle yet. Of all the sickly forms of verse, commend me to the triolet. Yeah. And it was only in the last time I read that second, it's of all the sickly, not of all the sticky, of all the sickly forms of verse. So I might read that again because I'm messed it up. Of all the sickly forms of verse, commend me to the triolet. It makes bad writers somewhat worse. Of all the sickly forms of verse that fall beneath a reader's curse, it is the feeblest jingle yet. Of all the sickly forms of verse, commend me to the triolet.
What's the last words again? It is the
commend of all the sickly forms of verse, commend me to the triolet.
And what's the point
of a triolet?
What's the point he's making about the triadic? I presume it's about the triolet is sometimes.
Well, what was it? It's
three-way.
Makes bad writers somewhat worse. Of all the sickly, it fall beneath the reader's curse. Welcome, Saul Cafarella. We got a warm seat over next to the heater for you here.
Yeah, it's a strange poem of his.
Come on in. Yeah, it is. Well, it's right at the end of the book now.
Hello, world.
I don't know if it was published in order of his writings or not, but it's yeah, really quite interesting that there's just such a lovely little short one there, and I thought, oh, that'd be lovely to do. Yeah. So now, when I was like a little bit younger than I am now, I always like to go boom and make a bit of a shock, hide behind a door and step out in front of my sisters or whoever was around and see how I can make them start. It was funny. Yeah, they're not going to die. But anyway, one place that I worked, we used to get these strawberries delivered, and they had dry ice. Now, if you put dry ice in a plastic bottle and then you add some water and put the lid on, the dry ice, carbon dioxide, melts, expands, and then the bottle goes boom, really loud. And if you put it in a wheelie bin, oh wow, it's even bigger boom. So, right, this one's called the Mad Bomber. The Mad Bomber is a toker and a marijuana smoker who makes loud booms and is a practical joker. If you knew the Bad Bomber, he'd insert an extra comma. Not a farmer nor a chummer, but a comma bomber. The Mad Bomber is a cheeky, a little bit sneaky, definitely peaky, who plays hide and seek me. Some say he's creepy. He's not sad. He's not crazy, bad or rad, just a mad bomber who's a little bit mad going through a fad. No, I grew out of it. Boom!
It could be a fart pump.
It could be, couldn't it? Yeah, just a mad bomber just walked past she's yeah. Lift a leg, yeah. Lift a cheek. All right, Skye, welcome back. Okay, here you go.
Oh, feeling tough. Okay, fine. Alright.
No. Make you look tall now.
Do I look taller?
Yep.
Okay. I'll just read this one out. Okay. You say you have to eat meat, but you're chicken to slaughter that bull on your plate, or even the chicken, oh finger lickin', but leaving the feet, oh what a disgrace. The look upon your face to see you kill if you can. You call yourself a man or a dame. You are pathetic and lame. Not even as they are sent to the horror house. All the same, the smell of death, their fear, the blood. They are the ones who see. They experience it. Not thee. You disgust me, you're disgusting, not doing the deed from your hand for your greed, the seconds of pleasure for taste of their death. Do you feed, carted, for the taste of their death do you feed, carted in slave trains, death behind doors, tears in their eyes, have you witnessed their horrors? Their cries, their sighs, the mass injustice, murdered by the millions, talking trillions by the sea. Are you comfy in your bed, feeling safe, as you are led to believe we need the dead to stay alive, as the media has read, on the side of biggest money bled from big pharma, as dished out disease is big business and not to be said, that the plants are healthy, eaten by the many, where the flesh you eats plenty, to be strong, not lax of any, strong as an ox, gorilla, elephant, They live long and many. The flesh, it is the middle, nutrition, eaten. Their lives taken for the laziness, instead of making the change to derive nutrition from the source where all animals learn to thrive and stay healthy and most of all alive.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that was the big spiel. I started writing it last week.
So yeah, cool. So you've been writing that for a week?
No, well, that was the one that I was talking about. I was sitting here after last week.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
just like, spilled out.
Yeah, they're the best ones when they just come out. Whatever's in your subconscious, it's cathartic. They're the best ones sometimes.
Best ones and worst ones.
True. Yeah.
I'll read this one. It's just a short one. Wanting. Waking up, I stretch, yawn. Wanting you this morn. Holding me in your arms, snuggled beside you, feeling calm. Missing the morning hellos and your sweet kisses goodnight. Watching the sunrise and doing yoga with you is a delight. Sitting out in the morn, in the sunlight getting warm. Something short. There you go. Something a bit nicer. The horrors.
Wow. So where will I take it from here? Oh, a nut. See this peanut? Yeah. I'll show the people there. You see the peanut? Yep. Okay.
The Japanese flag in reverse.
I saw this nut in the street. It begged, "Please don't eat." Thank you very much. That's it. Yeah. That's it.
That's a bit nutty.
That's nutty, yeah.
A little isolated me on my little island.
Yeah.
Tsunami goes chomp.
Now, I've
chomps the tsunami.
I did Jordan Peterson's personality test online, and I came up on the end of zero with neuroticism, so I'm a rather positive person. And then someone put this really negative, downer, poem up on one of the poetry groups I'm in. So in a reaction to that, I wrote a really positive one, as I generally do, to bring balance back to the world. Massive happiness. The rainbows are shining. All the clouds have silver linings. There's a smile relaxing my heart, releasing this pent-up fire. I have been grinding against the cracks, realizing news is not fact. Awake to this situation of manufactured fear, scarcity and frustration. We all have more than ever before. Globalisation provides abundance and more for us, our kids and grandkids. Optimism trumps pessimistic bids. It's sunny, it's cold, blue skies are bold. Victims point fingers of accusation, coal, oil, industrialisation, anthropogenic climate change, Club of Rome, fear and misinformation. World population is beginning to collapse, but AI on mobile phones on our laps. 30% increase in biomass globally. CO2 is an essential nutrient for a tree. If I drank, I'd celebrate life with a beer, not be frightened by propaganda, misinformation and fear. That one, yeah. Yeah, but the poor guy, like, just sort of reading his poem, I'm like, wow, that poor guy, like, he's like really, really like anxious. Like it really, like as you know, as I said before, it's cathartic when you write like you wrote yours. But Ashley's comment was quite pertinent in that catharsism and that time, that just like of writing it, you can get some great stuff and you can get some horrible stuff too. Yeah, you can. Yeah, it's yeah. So that was my inspiration, was someone's sort of negativity, and I was like, okay, well, how do I counter that in? Where do I see it? We all have different opinions and views of this world. We're all unique, aren't we? So, you got anything for us tonight?
Don't know.
You don't know? Well, how about look?
I'm a bit tired.
You're tired. You're up here to listen. Well, look, the other thing that I did this week, I wrote a poem for Maga. Ian McNamara from Australia all over her. There's a bit of a Freudian strip. Australia all Freudian strips. Oh God, what's on my mind?
They tumble forth like snowballs.
Australia all over her. Yeah. All right. Only because, like, I wrote this because I've sent a couple of emails to him. I've tried to ring him on a Sunday morning. I can never get through. But I'd love him up here if he could come. If anyone knows Macca out there, invite him. I would love him up here for the November, what do you call it, the festival that I'm holding up here, the Bush Poetry Competition, etc. He'd be a great host to do the comp fair and do his thing in the morning for the Poets Breakfast, whatever. Anyway, Macca. On air every Sunday morning all over Australia, you'll hear, "G'day, this is Macca," without failure, with bullockies, bogans, brizzos and whackers sharing their stories, serious funny and crackers. Aussies in Iceland tell of volcanoes and quakes, crocheting grandpa's bake fundraising cakes, mad cow riders and Mim cooking a meal, raising funds for Bendigo homeless in Camberwell. Ballads of bushies, country music and poetry, Australia all over Sunday morning for free at the kitchen table or driving a truck or a car. A Sunday morning wouldn't be the same without Ian McNamara. Dun-dun-dun-dun. G'day, this is Macca. Yeah, what he says. Yeah. He's been on there for like 30 years or something, a very long time. Yeah. I think he's 70, 72 or 73, turning 73 this year, yeah. Still at it from his office, and occasionally he takes his show on the road. So yeah, it'd be great if you could bring his show on the road to Guyra for the Poets on the Mountain Festival at Guyra and the Australian Bush Poetry Championship. Hey Macca, are you listening? Yeah? If anyone knows Macca out there, send this video to Macca. Macca, we want you here. Please, 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 please. I beg, I'd get down on my knees, but then you wouldn't see me. But hey, you know, I'm like you, Macca, I've got a great face for radio. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Oh well, I'll keep stalling while I'm waiting for Saul, the skeptic. I'll be the skeptic. Yeah. Well, I've only got one left actually from me for this week.
What's that?
I've only got one left from me this week. I got
Okay.
two left from me this week actually, but it was the only one I was going to do.
Well, I'll take the last
Oh no, I've got again. I've got two. Okay, cool. I'll do one and then I'll bring you up and then I'll finish with again. Yeah. All right. This one is called Nameless. It's nameless. It's actually got a name. It's called The Skeptic. The Skeptic. He didn't trust the government, and he was right. They carted him away in the middle of the night to a cell all alone in the dark without light. He didn't trust the government, and he was right. He questioned the science, and he was correct. Connections were made about cause and effect, his equations and research, all triple checked. Many people would die as an effect. He never believed the propaganda and rhetoric, the smoke and mirrors saw through the trick. He didn't get sanitised, masked, jabbed, nor sick. His reasoning acute and logical, so quick. Free speech is important for robust debate, must never be cancelled by those who are irate, including Don Trump Jr. and Andrew Tate. Respect is important if we're to eliminate hate. He wrote about stuff and he was a poet. Wrote about love, free speech, and was not afraid to show it. That's it. The skeptic. The skeptic. Are you ready for us?
Yeah.
You are? All right. Saul Cafarella, welcome back after a long absence. Abstinence.
It wasn't.
No, absence.
Well, I wrote nothing new over this time, so I'm
Oh,
just
that's understandable then.
Pardon?
That's understandable.
Yeah, so I'm going to be like the antithesis of the joy and tell a grim tale.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is, it's funny how the world sort of turns around in the sequence of things. As like 15 years ago, that thing of global warming, or 20, my grandmother who died before I was actually born, so 50 years ago, she was talking about how the planet was putting too much shit in the air, you know, and it's all the arguments, and as more people get to believe what it is, it gets more sceptical about what it is. People argue about it now from the other side of the fence, which is quite interesting, I find.
No, the best scientists have said for 100 years and haven't changed their drumbeat that it's the big P, pollution.
Yeah, pollution.
That's never changed. That's what's caused.
Pollution.
Whatever is happening, that's what's causing it.
So here we go. This is one I wrote, and
Go
this
back
is
and read
one that I
the
think
works in the 60s.
sort of pertinent to the times. And the grim tale of the plankton and the mega trees who thought they ruled the world. If only you were common and I could find you anywhere. But it seems that life's a mystery and that some things are quite rare. Maybe I'm a fool in love with breathing nice clean air and swimming in an ocean without plastic getting in my hair. There is a simple story that we all need to understand. I mean, that's very subjective, I believe. That once upon a time the air was full of carbon, like the beach is full of sand, and that most of life was plankton in the seas and huge mega trees upon the land. And that plankton and those mega trees thought that life was grand. They lazed in the sunshine, which there was a lot of. Greenhouse gases, the list for on. And gobbled up that carbon for breakfast, lunch and tea. And they partied and they partied and they gorged themselves indeed. Then, one day by day, they suffered for their greed. They ate up all that carbon and fell to the bottom of the seas. And on the land they'd grown and grown through generations past, but they too fell and were buried, victims of their lust. Because they breathed out oxygen, they changed the air that was so suited to their taste. It was not sustainable, and in a way, they suffocated on their waste. When their reign was over, and they were fossilising into coal and oil, all the oxygen that they made lit the fuse for all us critters to embroil. ourselves into the lot in which we fall and play and pray and live and politic and toil. Our super clever brain thought up grand ideas. We left the path of nature and things began to spoil. Like necromancers now, we raise those ancient dead who thought they ruled the world. Their rotted corpses laced with methane add to the atmospheric greenhouse swirl. And we burn their carbon bodies to charge our industry and make our engines whirl. Now, today, day by day, we return that carbon back into the world. Good sense is held to ransom for fear that we'll lose the things we think are fun by the soulless governments and energy tycoons who tell us when it rains, there's no sun. And without our crude and filthy fuel, the world just wouldn't run. But that's a lie, and now's the time. We're looking down the barrel of nature's gun. Every day that we live a lie, that lie becomes a truth. Unlike the plankton, those mega trees, for us there's no excuse. We can't live on poison, coal and oil is the proof. So make every little step you take count, like putting solar panels on the roof. Now's the time to demand and stand, and if we have to, fight, and understand that in the end, we either die or we unite to make it right. The air we breathe has no borders, and the sun is infinite. We need to change, or the climate will, and it may do it all on its own. And we can kiss ourselves goodnight. So if you hear this tale when I'm no longer here, and my children's children's children can all breathe clean, fresh air, maybe we will have realised that it's the one thing that we all share, and that the world, this globe we live upon, is extraordinary and rare. To be continued.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Saul. Now, before I read my last one, I'd just like to say in the comment section, in the description section below, will be the PayPal link for at Australian Poetry Hall if you'd like to make a donation to the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame for our New South Wales Bush Poetry Championship. So I'll be fundraising for that over the next few months, because we've got 3 of the best bush poets coming to be the judges of that. Robin Sykes, Bill Kearns, and it's just forgotten me. Ray Essery is the other one, yeah. So they'll be the judges. They'll be doing performances here. We've got to pay for their travel. We've got to have them accommodate them, etc., and fix them up, as well as organise, prizes, trophies, marketing, all of the stuff associated with putting on a major festival here in Guyra, which is that being the Poets on the Mountain at Guyra Festival, 12th to the 19th of November, which includes the Australian Bush Poetry Association New South Wales Bush Poetry Championship and the Australian Bush Poetry Film Festival, all of which cost lots of money to put on and organise. So I am looking for big sponsors who can sponsor like $10,000 and want to have their names plastered all over this place when visitors from everywhere come to Guyra, you know, whether it's Coca-Cola or not, or anyone in between like Qantas or Telstra or someone like that. Yeah, someone with lots of money to spend on an amazing Australian cultural event. Supporting heaps of poets and stuff like that. So yeah, and if you're not a sponsor but you can make a donation, you'll see the PayPal link at Australian Poetry Hall in the description below. Now, while I'm at it, and I'm going to ignore the phone ring because it's probably one of those like people saying like my internet's down, but it's not. No, yeah.
Nice.
No, it's definitely not. No, it couldn't be down because there's phones ringing. It's on the internet. Yeah, it comes through the internet. Right. So, yeah. Well, I'm going to finish off with again, which is the last of the lastness of what I've written today. Now, there are two words in here which I would like to explain first because they're Japanese words. Ikigai and Kaizen. They're in Japanese Zen philosophy. They're really about their ideal Japanese philosophy. They're two ideas that about happiness and meeting your purpose in life and living a satisfactory life. So ikigai basically means purpose. So having your purpose, what is it that you really are passionate about, that you work for, and your work is based around that. And the second part is Kaizen, which is basically small baby steps to achieve the long-term goal and your purpose. So the patience of being able to, what do they call it, delayed gratitude?
Yes.
Yeah, so the patience of being able to do the little bits at a
Start
time.
at the beginning.
Yeah, you start one step at a time, yeah. Every journey starts with one step. So yeah, this is called again. I'd been a little bit of hadn't written a great deal over the last few weeks, but then I did get injured, and I sort of put me in a bit of a. But I'm back at it again. Sitting, and this was written, started at 3 a.m, finished at 3:33. So yeah, that's a bit of a background to it. In the middle of the night, sitting. Awake. 3 a.m. Riding again. The phoenix, ikigai, emerges with Kaizen. Poetry, my purpose. Baby steps at first. Stumble, but get up again. And again and again. Then running with friends. Trip, slip, hurt a bit, pick myself up again. Work through the pain. Final rewards in order to gain life lessons. The reward of pain is gain. This ending the pain of again and again to let go. Nothing is perfect. Go with the flow, like water. That even though flows from height to low will rise again to the sky to be thunderclouds flowing on winds that blow again. Thank you very much. And yeah, that does also include within it another part of that Japanese philosophy of happiness in life, which is where did I find it? Nothing is perfect. Yeah. So let go of perfectness. You can't make anything ever perfect. Yeah.
She'll be right, mate.
You'll be right, mate. You can be close. You can do a good job, and you can. But see, they also have like Sigma 6. So the whole idea in Japanese quality control was Sigma 6. Is it 6 Sigma? Sorry, of you should be able to test something to the extent that it won't break eventually, like at all, because it's been everything, all the processes to make stuff. Yeah, it's tried over and over and over again. Yeah, so it's close to perfect, but nothing is perfect. Yeah. Yep. Like me. Yep. Like me. Yep.
Not like me.
I'm not. Well, you are. Yeah. Yeah.
No.
I'm not. Yeah.
I'm very imperfect.
Perfect.
Well, look, there was one more. It was an intergenerational poem. I'm not going to do it because it was a poem from the perspective of a. You are? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us here on Wednesday Words. Can you please give it a thumbs up and write a comment there and tell us what poets you would like to hear? Okay. We'll see you next week here from Wednesday Words at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. I'm Thundercloud, that was Saul, before that was Skye, then Ashley, and yeah, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Jim Bob.